Good evening, Chris. Mr. Noble, how are you doing this fine, warm evening?
Very good, sir. How are yourself?
Doing good. I got to spend the evening outside, did some pizza barbecuing, and it was in the sun. The kids are outside playing the trampoline, so it was a nice way to get ready for the show tonight. This show should be pretty cool. We've got some new guests that haven't been on our show before we get the cat out of the bag. But yeah, just tell me about what's going on with you, Chris.
Not much. You know what? You and I didn't get connected a lot this week because we were both so busy. But I had some exciting news, which we've kind of announced on our last shows, is getting Alberta Sheriff's Safer Communities. I lost the acronym. Scan. There we go. Safer communities and neighborhoods. Yes. That's funny, eh? It's funny how you can have these mental blocks. But anyway, I got that connection made today officially with the person who will be joining us. So I'm really excited about that. Yeah. And it's right around that 3-week mark. Where we'll get them in. It's just they have to do some planning with their scheduling and their shifts and stuff like that, but he's excited to come on, and I'm excited to have them. So we already had a great chat and made a great law enforcement connection. So yeah,
it's pretty exciting. We've had them on our page before. Scan, so they're the Safer Communities and Neighborhoods. They have a little more of a focus with landlords because they can go in and shut down drug operations, other, let's call it gang-related activities. So if some of us landlords have gotten ourselves into a predicament where we're dealing with really challenging individuals that are at our property, and it might not even be our tenants, this could be a great asset to learn about and how to use to keep your property safe. So look forward to that show. We'll do a bunch of a kind of a post just to get everyone in the aware that's coming up, because it has been a long time. Chris, I actually think you've been working on the show before January. This was a conversation from last year we talked about.
Yep. And and the great thing is this is a show. If you're clicking in afterwards and you're picking this up on YouTube because you didn't have time to watch it tonight, once we make the announcement of this show, this is a show you don't want to miss, and I personally believe it's a show you should watch live because you can ask the questions. And you know that Mac and I have always produced this show in that. Participating and you drive your conversation, your questions drive our show, and what you're asking, someone else is asking the same question. So
absolutely,
when we bring him in, it's very important that I believe it's very important that as many people as you can join that show, because there is a component of what they do. If you're a landlord and you're ignoring things, you can expect to be held accountable financially and potentially legally for turning a blind eye. So your property gets seized by the government, you're not going to be a happy camper. So let's work together to make sure things are safe. And this is a show you want to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. So tonight on the docket for our show, a topic that I'm very passionate about. I've got I'm gonna call them a power couple because it's not too often. They are here and there. We'll get couples in real estate that can actually work well and still be happy to be together. I love it. They're going to be a fun asset. And we've got Nelda and Gil. And like myself, we have a big focus on screening tenants. The same belief that if you do the right work up front, it's going to be a very smooth sailing for that tenancy, as well as, you could have this really great property, but if you don't put the right person in, they're not paying it. Doesn't matter how perfect that property is, the right amenities, all the right features, you're not making any money because that tenant is really the true asset, and that house is just kind of that next step to keep them going. So a really good conversation. We'll talk a little bit about some diligence, some how to attract these tenants, some marketing tips, some screening questions, all these good things that these folks are probably really good at, because they also did I believe tenant screening as well as tenant placement, I'm sorry, here in Calgary for a number of years. So a great conversation tonight. Very excited for it. Probably without further ado, Chris, shall we get our guests on the air?
Absolutely. Let's do this. I love the back behind the scenes chat we just had, and let's get this rolling.
Perfect. I'm letting you run the show, Chris. That's
Are you?
Your IT muscle.
Oh, there you go, bud.
Perfect. Gil and Nelda, how are you guys doing tonight?
Oh, we're great.
Very well,
We're
thank
great.
you.
Thanks for having us on your show.
Absolutely. And thank you guys. We really started this conversation only a day ago. I was trying to put something last minute together, and Nelda kindly stepped up to help come on the show. And through our conversations, pretty excited about this because we share very similar passions. But let's take a step point. And for the people that don't know who you guys are, who is Nelda and Gil, and how did you guys get into real estate?
Well, we've both been property managers for, combined about 15 years. We have private rental properties that we own in Alberta and BC. And I've self-managed all of mine this whole time. And Gil has had his out for property management at different times. But anyway, that aside, we decided about 5 or 6 years ago we were going to start our own property management business. So we did. We ran our property management business from 2017 until 2020. We originally started out as a tenant finding business, and then we became licensed, and then we offered a full property management service. And then recently we segued the business into an online education and resource business. And it's just kind of getting running right now. We're offering courses and resources. And then I also work for Liike, the Real Estate Council of Alberta, writing curriculum for all the licensed courses that real estate professionals have to take in Alberta.
And at the same time, we still have our own properties that we continue to manage. So yes.
And Gil's also an IT wizard. Like a lot of people in real estate, we do a couple things at one time. I've always juggled a lot of balls. And I always worked full-time, and I also worked part-time as a leasing agent. So my background was training and development and adult education facilitation. And then on weekends, I'd work as a property manager, a leasing agent, which was always kind of fun. There were so many stories I could tell at the dinner table.
And Nelda is also a classically trained musician from Bloomington, Indiana. So
very
but
cool.
That's got nothing to do with it's got nothing to do with property management. It's
it does.
Just one of those.
It's a good backstory.
Yeah. It does make the show interesting, and you know that really tells a good story of kind of how this community has come together and the culture that we're trying to build here or continue on building. Is a lot of us are in here on you know, this is our side hustle. This is our part-time gig to build the nest egg for our retirement. Mm-hmm. And a lot of us have day jobs. So it's not only managing our daily responsibilities, families, and other things, but then all of a sudden you're coming out and then trying to do that viewing at 7 o'clock on a Wednesday night between maybe a hockey practice or something like that. And then all of a sudden now something's going on. You're taking phone calls from your tenants, and it can be certainly a challenging business. So you guys fit right in the picture with us. So you guys did tenant placement for a number of years. So you probably have seen hundreds of tenants, selected a bunch. What out of that experience, what did you guys learn, and where's your focus with your education that you guys doing right now? What do you think the biggest pitfalls that maybe most landlords are seeing right now or making the mistake at?
Well, should I answer this one?
Yes.
I think the biggest issue that most landlords have is a lot of people get very excited about buying a rental investment property, and they go ahead and they crunch all the numbers and they make sure everything works. And then when it comes to putting tenants in their property, they just say, well, I'll just wing it. I've had so many people tell me that, and I just cringe, because you absolutely must have a process. We've got a 5-step screening process that I use every single time. You have to use it on every single tenant, every single time. You can't skip steps. If you skip steps, you run into problems. And as you mentioned earlier, Mackenzie, if you don't do your work on the front end and you don't spend the time and the little bit of money it costs to do your proper screening on the front end, then you are going to pay on the back end. So you're going to have
absolutely
people trashing your property, people not paying you, people moving in unregistered guests or pets. You know, so that's the kind of stuff you try and weed out from the very beginning, so that you're not getting a million phone calls. You don't want it to be your full-time job. You want this to be, like you said, a side hustle and a nest egg, not something that takes up all of your time and makes you pull your hair out.
We had a guy who had a property, and he called us in tears because he had this tenant, and the tenant wasn't paying rent and all the other, you know, the stories everyone hears. And we said, so what was your process in letting them in? And he basically said he didn't have one.
Yeah.
And we said, why? And he said, because I don't want to look like a jerk. You know, you cannot have this attitude. You have to be committed to the process. And, you know, once you know the process works, not deviate. The second,
And remind yourself it's
Yeah.
a business. It's not, you're not running a soup kitchen. This is not a charity. Contribute to charity all you want, but your business has to make you money. That's why you're doing this. So you need to put practices in
Absolutely.
place that make you a
Can
profit.
I jump in just for a sec? And
Absolutely.
you know what?
Chris.
Sometimes being vulnerable is some of the best learning experience. And you know what, you guys, I was that person you just
So was
described.
I. So was I. I had a drug
I
as one of my first tenants. Yeah.
So the first place I find is right near my house. I go by and I see a for sale sign, and I inadvertently, well, I kind of know who lives there, and I talked to her, and I said, well, you're selling your house. She goes, yeah. She says, oh, we're asking this, but we probably only take this much. And I said, oh, okay. So I go to my partner and I said, hey, I think I can find us a rental property. He goes, oh, well, tell me more. And we did. And I said, let's give it a try. So there's the first problem, because you're going, let's give it a try. That's the first problem right there, right? So then we make this crazy offer because I got inside information, and then I had the realtor make an offer for me as an agent rather than my name going on it, and they accepted the offer. And it got lowballed. We got the place at a ridiculous price, and because they wanted out, and we started and we rented it. And from there, we went into number 2, number 3, number 4, and number 5 after that. And but it wasn't until I got into the show and met Mackenzie. You know, we got a year in now, Mac.
We are close. Our first show, yeah, we've known each other for a year now, but our first show went live beginning of May, first Wednesday of May last year.
And
Right.
so it was then. And you know what? I am the person you guys are like, you just go, oh my God, let me help you. Is I was that person. And you know what? I didn't take my law enforcement experience and apply it to this other act and learn things. And once I started doing the show and started digging and learning things and applying the acts and taking what I already know, I get away from the Highway Traffic Act and the criminal code and the drug acts and everything else. And, oh, well, go read this one, Chris. And that's when I became more knowledgeable and more well-read in this, and meeting some of our eviction experts and learning from them. And now it's like exactly what you just said is what tweaked me to talk a little more here. Was this isn't a soup kitchen. This is a business.
It's a business.
And that's what
mindset.
Yeah. And that mindset is what changed what I do. And now it's like, you know what? I appreciate, like the one lady says, we tried changing our doors on our duplex, and every time we do something to our side, our renter on the other side wants us to do the same, but there's nothing wrong with their property. And I say, you know, and I commented on that. It's your right to update yours, and that's your business over there. If it's working, it's fine. Like, you know what? And my comment to them was, no problem. On your renewal, we'll change your doors, but your rent is now $125 extra a month.
Yeah, it's a business. You're treating it like a business, which is great.
Yeah.
So the other thing that always makes me laugh is I remember a woman calling me and saying, well, I don't really want to spend the money on hiring you guys to screen my tenants and put all the paperwork in place. I could probably wing it myself. Can you just give me a quick overview of what I need to do? So I said, sure. So I said, here are the 5 steps that you need to go through. And after I was finished talking nonstop for about 20 minutes, she said, holy shtick.
And that's the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, won't I scare the tenants off? And I said, oddly enough, the good tenants do not get scared off with the screening process. They're like a kid who's got an A+ report card and they can't wait to show it to you. So
Yeah.
I've never had a problem with good tenants being scared off. The bad ones get scared off, and
Yes.
that's what you want.
exactly.
Yeah.
We've had
It-
our
that-
bad tenants who've fought against our process, and no problem.
Keep up
Definitely.
the bad work. Yeah, keep throwing the temper
Yeah.
tantrums. Keep being rude to me because I just say goodbye then, you know?
Yeah, it's a quick exit to the door when that attitude comes in, and it does. It's surprising people think that work. Let's say a quick hello. Hey, Lewis. Hey, Bill. Thanks for tuning in. Lewis is from Calgary. Bill is out in Lethbridge, and then we got who's the Facebook user, Chris? We got in
It's,
from Camrose
Tony.
and Tasman.
Tony,
Tony.
Yeah. So
Perfect. Okay, so I love this, and I got a lot of questions in my head, so I'm going to try to focusing this down. So, in your guys's, you've already talked about a 5-step process. Let's go quickly. What are those 5 steps for the people out there?
Do you want to?
Okay, well, we're going to advertise. We're going to target our advertising. We're going to do a very effective job of pre-screening. We've got a very robust application process. We will do reference checks, and those reference checks will be also robust, and included in the reference checks, we'll get into this later, but we also do title searches on the property owners that are given as previous landlord references. I don't know if anyone else does that, but
I've done it.
Oh, that's good, because
Yeah.
we get all kinds
Yeah.
of things for writing that. They're like, holy cow, are you guys ever worse than Nexus?
It sounds like to me, like it sounds like, if I can take a quick stab at it, you guys are taking all these different data points that they've given to you, and you're validating with third-party sources that you want to make sure, in fact, what's been given to you is in fact true.
absolutely.
100%. And then the last step is a
This is the
credit check. And you have to run a credit check.
Yeah, it's probably their largest bill a month, and their financial education or their financial attitude will completely drive if they can pay that bill on time or not.
How
So
people
why would
treat
you
their
not
credit,
check that?
that's how they treat their lives.
Mhm.
Absolutely, absolutely. So good. This is awesome. All right. So I wonder if I'm going to learn something new tonight, because myself, like Gil, I'm an IT person as well. So my take when I got on this, and I actually have it, we both have tenant screen courses here, is I was very scared at first. I was absolutely like, I didn't want to make a mistake. I had one property, and my mortgage, my financial, I was all tied to this rental property. So if it went tits up, went sideways, whatever, it would take me down financially as well. And that's good to live in days. I mean, I had a pregnant wife at the time when we got our first property. And so my IT-ness kicked in, and me being IT, I have to go figure out things work. And I researched, took courses, took classes, articles, blogs, you name it, right? Figured it all out. And then, fast forward 3 or 4 years later, I'm at one of these real estate conferences, Acres, a few folks might know from the Rain community. I'm talking to this Diamond member, who's got 150 doors under his belt. And I woke up and we got on the topic of tenant screen. So I opened up my binder and I said, well, I do this, here's my process. And his jaw dropped down the floor. He's like, whoa, you do all that? And I was like, well, wait a minute. What do? You have 150 doors. And I realized at that point, I was like, okay, maybe I'm doing something a bit differently than the average cat. So awesome. So you talked about filtering up front. What do you guys mean by that in that first step of your process with the marketing?
Okay, so there's two parts to that. First is the advertising. And so our experience has been that for at least this market, Rent Board and Rent Fast are the places to advertise. I've found that Kijiji does not give you the quality of Tenant. I don't think Craigslist is very great. We've tried a number of other ones, but really our good results come from those two sites. And so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do the best job we can to write an advertisement to our target tenant without...
But not excluding anybody that would violate the human rights legislation.
So you have to be very careful about that, but
Yes.
you do want to appeal to the right to the right crowd. Like you write something that you think that crowd would glom onto, if that makes sense.
So let's give them an example. So maybe you guys got property. Are we close to a university or downtown or a school? You'd probably change the tone of that ad a bit for each of those type of demographics, because we're talking, Yeah,
like we had one property that was a townhouse. It was for when they could still do this. It was a seniors only complex, so you had to be over 50, and they did not accept children. And so we catered the ad to empty nesters who were looking to downsize, not have any hassles with mowing a lawn, or and then the convenience, everything close by, the shopping centers, the hospital, the churches. And then we ended up getting exactly that kind of a tenant. We got seniors who wanted to stay there until they couldn't live on their own anymore, which was great for the landlord.
The other example we like to throw out is our Mackenzie Town property we had, which was a gated backyard. So Mackenzie Town is appealing to urban or professionals, and you've got gated backyards so you can have pets and kids. So this is how you write the ad to try to attract that particular demographic.
And then when people call, because this is part of the screening process as well.
Oh, yes.
We always pre-screen over the phone. So
absolutely.
there are a number of questions that I always ask, always in the same order, always the same way, just to see if the people are qualified to rent your property. So for instance, if you have a 1-bedroom condo and the condo only takes, will only allow one person because of the square footage, and they don't accept pets, and somebody calls you and they've got 5 kids and 3 dogs and 2 cats, well, you need to find that up front, because you're not going to waste your time going down and showing them a condo they don't qualify to rent, and you can't rent to them. So you need to pre-screen them up front. And then when they get into the actual showing, you ask them the same questions again, and you stay very quiet and you wait for them to talk, because people get very nervous when there's silence. And that's good, because you want them to talk as much as they can, and so you can verify their information.
And by asking the same set of questions on the phone call as in the showing, you're actually able to check to see if the story is the same, because
you're looking for variance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think we're sharing like the exact same playbook and behind. It's same strategy. I want to make sure that I don't say anything, because that never people will spill more than they intend. And typically you get information you can't actually ask for. You'll get marital status, ages of children, things of that. If they disclose it, then it's fair game, but you can't go asking for it.
No, you can't ask. No. I had one guy who called, it was quite funny, and he was telling me he wanted to find a really good place to live. And this property that he was looking at looked really attractive. And I said, oh, do you mind if I ask why you're moving? And he said, oh, the last 4 landlords I had were horrible. I sued every one of them.
And you're like, noted. Okay.
Okay. I have to go right now. I'll call you back. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so true. I mean, so you guys do scripted questions on the phone. So do I. What's your particular favorite you like to ask out of your questions? Or what do you think one's less common that you ask that maybe most other people don't ask?
Actually, the why are you moving? I'm not sure how many people ask that question, because most people are like, they don't want to ask that question. It's like an introduction.
That's fair. I like asking that one.
Do you mind if I throw something out at you here?
Yeah,
sure,
right.
Chris, get in there.
So I always ask this question. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Oh, you took it. I was going to say the same thing.
It's the opening to either their nail or the coffin that you're going to nail shut, or it's the box of the prize you're going to open. It's going to be one or the other, because while you're, and you know what, it's very important you practice the awkward silence, because when they finish talking and they give you the short answer, say nothing. The hardest part for you as the interviewer is to sit there and say nothing, because you think you have to fill the conversation. Say
And
nothing.
you cannot feed them. You cannot give them. You can't say, "Oh, well, it sounds like you're a good tenant," or whatever. Like,
Don't encourage them.
Why are you giving them the answers? Oh, you sound like a really great guy. Oh, yeah, we are, and that's just so. This is why we're so great. No,
Superstars.
You say, well, tell me some more. Tell me a little bit about your work, and how do you like your work? And oh, your wife works there. Tell me about her. Oh, and is that something your family background, or tell me more about that? And that's, you give them the open-ended questions and say, if I can't say this again and say it enough, say nothing. Yeah. That sounds, the less you say is the more you'll hear. And that's, you don't need to talk. You're not interviewing yourself.
It just makes me think, Chris, you're the good cop who's actually the bad cop.
Nelda is actually much better at this than I am. I tend to get a bit flustered during the interview questions, so she's sort of does that stuff.
Well,
she is brilliant.
Well, my background was adult Ed and I, when I lived in Fort McMurray, we were interviewing people every week, like literally every week. That was how fast their turnover was. So I probably have done thousands of interviews in my life. But one question I asked that I always kind of get a chuckle out of, because I always get so many different answers. Okay. I said, how many people will be living in the property?
I asked that too. I love it.
No one ever gives me a number. This is what makes me laugh. 100%. No one gives me a number. They say, oh, well, there's my brother-in-law who's probably going to be staying with us. There's my mother. Oh, my little sister's going to come. My husband has 2 kids, but they're only there on the weekend. And then I've got my 3. But then my husband's ex-wife has another, so I start writing little tips.
You get the story, and your pen's trying to scribble as fast as they're talking, because you caught 4 or 5 names, and you got the ages of the kid, but they're there part-time. And that's exactly how they answer. You never do get 4 or 3. No, it's like, well, here's my life story, and I'm going to explain it to you person by person.
Yeah.
So go back to that question, is to say, when they give you and you just sit there, and when they're done, you sit there and wait, and then you say, okay, so sorry, how many people are going to be living at the property?
I can't.
And they go, and then you may have to ask it a third time. Well, but how many people will be living at the property? And so after you said it the third time, you know what? They realize the jig is up. So it's all about interviewing and learning these techniques. So if you're taking anything away from the show tonight, from the 4 of us, when you're watching, is awkward silence, and repeat your question, and don't fill in the empty spaces. That's very important.
Yeah, definitely. I'll show you guys. So I carry these on my wall. I've got plastic business cards that have all my questions printed out on them, my scripted question, because I find I get phone calls when it's not convenient, and then I don't. And I do it more often now, so it's not usually big. But when I first starting out, I had two doors at a time, or I had rented out, or I was renting 1 or 2 doors at a time. So I'd only do this interview process, in a short spurt for one vacancy in 1 month for a couple of weeks at a time every year. So I wasn't remembering my questions. So I started carrying the questions on a plastic card, and then it's just easier to keep that flow of conversation going. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the one tip I'd throw in too. I tried experimenting with being an IT guy. I tried experimenting as well with inbound call recording on a VoIP app, and I paid like $15 a month. But then I quickly realized, why would I pay $15 a month and only do like 2 viewings a year? If it was more busier, I think that would have been good. Then I wouldn't have to worry about taking notes. I could go back and listen to the conversation.
Yeah, which is a good idea. We I don't think I ever recorded anything that we did. We had too many calls when we were property managing, but
we took notes.
I took notes, and I did the exact same thing that you did. So I'm beginning to think maybe we share the same brain, Mackenzie, because I had a laminated questionnaire by my office phone. So that
I have them everywhere: wallets, cards, phones in the house. You bet, right? So
anytime I could answer a phone, Nelda would have that piece of paper right in front of my face.
Totally, right? Because you get in the flow of a conversation, you want to keep them talking, so you add in, so what do you mean about that? And then they kind of continue on, you're taking notes, and then you realize, I missed 2 questions, and then you've already wrapped up the call, and it's like, shoot. Sometimes you can call them back and follow up on that, but it does make it easier when you capture all that information up front. And Gil, I so love, you're the first person I've heard mention asking the same questions over and over, because everyone thinks, that's kind of silly. But you're looking for consistency across different the same questions at different points in the time, because if their story's changing, that's a red flag, and you want to dig into further. Because how many people
over multiple conversations?
It starts changing, yeah.
So, and how many people can keep lies straight? If they're like, if someone's smart enough to lie that well to do it, they're probably a lot better doing other things. But most people that are going to try to swindle you as a professional tenant don't have that intelligence level typically to run the lie continuously for weeks on the time. So, let's say they talk to them on the phone on Tuesday, Thursday or Friday, they come in for the viewing, and then maybe you do some due diligence, you follow up with 1 more, 2 more phone calls. That could be, it depends how busy the market is, depending on what the market is. It could be short or it could be longer, but if it's in a longer period of time, people can't keep their facts straight that long in a row. So,
I'm doing similar things.
Yeah. Cool. Definitely. So let's say we've got some calls come in. So we're doing some screening by specifying on our ad the type of folks that we want to find, again, without discriminating against those key areas. You've done your phone calls, so you've screened these folks with your favorite questions. And they're all scripted. You have the same ones as me. So I'm trying to think like what else to do. Like I'll share some of my questions. So I do my openings is open end. Please tell me about yourself, because let them spill their beans, so to speak. I talk to them about some logistics, so move-in date, lease term, how many people will be living in the rental. So same one as that. Do you smoke or vape? This is my favorite one. Have you given your current landlord notice that you're moving, or proper notice? Yeah. So I like to know how their track record of treating their current landlord, because that's probably a good telltale sign of how they're going to treat you. I try to get their current address and when they move to that address, because the same thing, I want to validate when I get the application that this information is accurate there. And then when I do that credit check, I see that same address with Equifax that it's actually reported through their billing. And if I get that linked across those 3 data points, I'm really happy to see that. Mm-hmm. So I've changed this question, and maybe I'm not doing 100% kosher, but I'm going to bounce this one off you guys, because now I'm kind of curious. I used to ask, are you working full time? If not, what other types of income? And then because I knew you couldn't technically ask for a source of income, but to be truthful now, I've kind of sliced it a bit, and now I just ask what type of work you do, because I know technically from a privacy standpoint, you can't really discriminate on a source of income, but you can dive into the type of income, how often they're working full-time, part-time. Is it salary? Is it guaranteed? Is it maybe commission? All those other things.
Source of income. You can verify the income, but you can't necessarily verify the source.
Correct.
But But what I'll do is what we'll do is we'll ask for pay stubs or bank statements or various things. And there's nothing to prevent you from doing that. And once you have a pay stub, you pretty much know where they work. I mean, it's kind of a divide by zero law as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. You'll get the information one way or hell. You just can't say literally ask for it, basically.
No, I also ask for, if they don't have a pay stub, like some people are independently wealthy and let's say they're trust fund babies. And I will ask for a letter from an accredited accountant or their lawyer, or a letter from the bank manager. And that has to come directly from that person to me with their stamp or whatever, their signature on it, whatever is the legal thing to do. So that's another way to verify income that doesn't come from a job. And that's worked well. I've been fine producing that.
Yeah, we have been successful with that. But
sorry, I'm sorry to interrupt, Bill. I was going to
go for it.
I forgot what I was going to say. Darn it! It just came to me and flew out of my head. Oh.
When it comes back, jump in. I'm liking this because we're sharing our tools of the trade here, and so I'm gonna go through more because I know I'm like, you know what? Let's just get them all out there. I always say, hey, I do background and credit checks as part of my screen process. Do you have any concerns I should know about?
Actually, I was going to say this, by the way, this is part of the process. If you're okay with it, let's proceed with this, with the meeting, the showing. If you're not okay with it, that's okay. There are other people who don't do it. You'll
find someone.
Yeah, you'll find someone.
Okay, brilliant. That's super cool. Okay, like this is like, I love it. We're very, very like-minded here. So yeah, I get that. I've gotten tons of disclosures, bankruptcies, all that good stuff, which is actually good because as long as what's being told to me on the phone is truthful and I'm able to verify that down through my due diligence, through the credit checks and so on, that's a good sign because I'm getting the true story. Then I'm more comfortable with what is being presented is the whole story, and then I can make more of a confident decision. I find it challenging when my red flags come up where I get something, then the checks come in, and then I do the employer check or I do the previous landlords. Things aren't starting to add up, or I'm finding more information that wasn't mentioned before. And now I'm like, okay, if I found this tip of the iceberg, what else am I really missing from here that I'm not making a decision on?
I often wonder, like we have had people who have said, yeah, you can do a credit check, and it comes back with an F. And I think, what were you even thinking? Like, why did you even agree to this? You should have run away as soon as we told you we were going to do a credit check. It makes no sense.
Call my bluff, and then we checked, and well, okay. Yeah. And then the last thing I do is I do a bit of a social test, or kind of like a psychology test. Is my last part? I go, okay, Mr. Smith, thanks for confirming that. This sounds great. I'm happy with what we saw. Let's get you booked in for your viewing. So then we go confirm date and time and place. And I say, by the way, part of my screening process, and to avoid and save everyone time, is that I need a text to confirm the viewing an hour to 2 hours before the viewing. If I don't get this text, I don't show up because I want to avoid no shows. And everyone's like, yeah, no problem. They're all, and you guys do it as well?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I don't want to show up for nothing, especially when we had the property management business. I mean, that could be your whole day. You could be your whole day driving around
town to no
for
shows.
Nothing. So there's your gas and your mileage and nothing. So
we would be nice quite often. If we didn't receive the text, we'd make a phone call, just in case.
Because sometimes people forget. They got a lot on the go.
Yeah, it depends. If it's a same day one, I can't really squeeze that one in. I just will try to queue it up nicely. But I find if I'm booking in the next day, which I typically am because I don't have vacancies typically. Obviously, I don't have vacancies, so I have to give the proper 24-hour notice to my current tenant. So I said I'm always booking 1 to 2 days ahead. I find that's kind of the sweet spot. I've also noticed that if I started booking 3, 4, 5 days out, the no-show rate goes like right through the roof.
Place.
What's that?
The tenants have found another place.
And
we want to get people in. Like they make the call, we do the showing, we do it as quickly as possible so that they don't have time to look for something else.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just gonna throw some comments here. We're getting lots of comments on the show here, which is awesome. So Don Gray, he's one of our eviction specialists out of Edmonton with the Edmonton Eviction Services, and he's probably on the point that we talked earlier. Most people don't do the checks, but they say they do. So the tenant was trying to call bluff, but when you actually get a landlord that we know what we're doing, and then we see these funny things.
scares the professional tenants off.
100% it does. And then this is a good one. And I've kind of sampled with this. I'm going to throw this to you guys. So we use that same strategy, right? We get all this information up front, and then we want to try to find different ways to make sure that's true. So I started asking on a couple of my vacancies, how do you guys pay rent? Is it by check? Is it e-transfer? Whatever. Typically, I find 90% of the time it's by e-transfer, and I go, great. Okay, and I make note of that. So when I'm doing my due diligence and I want to see that the rent's been paid on time, I typically, well, let's say I go down the credit score route, and if it's kind of subpar and I need a little bit more support and documentation, they're kind of on the fence, I'll go and say, oh, hey, can you guys show me proof that you guys have paid rent the last 12 months on time? And if they go, oh, I don't have anything, well, I'm like, well, you told me you paid by e-transfer, so can you not just forward me the emails? And if they can't provide that information, that's a problem. Yeah. Or they go say, well, no, actually I paid it by check. Now the story's changing again because I've got that data point. So I started asking I do it sometimes on the phone call, but I definitely do it during the viewing. I'll ask them, how do you guys pay rent? So do you guys do something like that as well? Any other kind of data points you try to grab along the way to cross them up down the road? Or
that data point we'll get from their previous landlord. So our rule is we'll go, the current landlord may be someone who's just saying, I want this person out.
Yes.
So they might give them a brilliant reference.
So we go back, and now if the person's been in the same property 5 years, chances are, they're a good tenant. But if they're, especially if they've only got a couple of years of rental history, go back to the second landlord. That's the person who's less motivated to lie.
Absolutely. That is so true, right? Because if someone has not done their due diligence up front, they've got a problem tenant, and now that tenant wants to move, what are they going to do? Are they going to help you out, or are they going to help themselves out first? We're all humans. We're all the same nature. You can expect they'll probably help themselves out first. That's such a good point you guys bring up about going to that second previous landlord where there's no strings attached. He'll just give you the honest, he or her will give you the honest story.
And the other thing that we do, and then I think this is probably the right time to talk about it, we discussed this earlier, we're going to do a title search on the property that the tenant claims to have lived in, and make sure that the landlord is truly the landlord on title.
So that's a good landlord. So like one of us who are not, we're not a property management conglomerate, or we're not going through a property management. We're just
private landlord,
self-managed.
Yeah.
And so those are the ones we run title searches on.
And if I may, we've had two situations in the last 3 years probably where we had people who lied about their landlords, had friends pose as landlords, and we were able to bust them, which probably saved us 2 months of lost rent plus an eviction for a grand total of, for all the money we've spent probably in the last 5 years, $1,000 or something. Like, it's a huge return on investment.
Yeah, $20 for that credit check and score, $10 to run a title search to validate a bunch of facts about the landlords. So one of my latest tenants came in, and he was actually an owner, and then because of COVID last year, lost his job, wasn't doing well. His credit score showed that he had recent trouble, but his payment history up to that point, he hadn't missed any payments, so that backed it up. So I went and pulled title, and his name was on title, and I was like, perfect. I saw his full legal name there. It's the name I had, the same name and matched the credit score. And that's when I checked title. I have thought of doing exactly what you guys talked about. I haven't so far had the need to do it so far because most of the time I've had enough facts checked off already through my credit check and some of the phone calls that I was happy with. So I'm going to segue to the phone call side. When you guys are phoning in previous references, how do you guys defend from the fake reference call from a friend or a buddy being that landlord?
Well, so I'll take the first part, which is the work reference.
Okay.
And this one's really easy. Don't phone the number on the application. Go on Google, look up the company phone number, call the switchboard, ask for the manager. We have had people who said, I've never heard of this person before. I have no idea who it is. And that is it's free and it's easy and it's great.
The other thing you can do is you can call with a fake name. I've done it a few times before. Gil gets really squeamish about it because I guess he's more honest than I am. Anyway,
This is for landlords.
call it a fake name for a landlord. So if the person says they lived in a 2-bedroom condo that they shared, or that, whatever, private landlord, and I'll call and I say, oh, hi, it's Diane, and I heard that your 2-bedroom condo is coming up for rent, and so told me that it's vacant. And if the person says, I don't have a condo for rent, I've never rented a condo for rent, I don't own a condo, busted. So I
Love
do that
it.
too.
Yeah. I do a very similar tactful approach that you do, Nelda. I've gotten much more comfortable talking on the phones over the last, well, I'm doing the show now, right? So talking is not such a problem anymore for me. But I do 2 takes at one. I just call up and say, hey, I'm calling about your rental. I don't introduce my name or anything. And if they stutter, go rental, I know I've got a friend posing as a fake reference. Or if it's a landlord, then they go, which property are you talking about? I don't have any vacancies right now. I'm like, perfect. Then I get into the conversation, introduce myself. I also changed the facts. So I'm looking at the application. They've given me a date and a time when they rented from this house. So maybe I'll change the house address. Maybe they'll say they moved out in August instead of May. Maybe I told them that they had a pet fee. I add in or change the details of the application. I get that previous landlord to confirm that is in fact true or wrong. So if they don't correct me and they agree with everything, then again, I probably have someone posing as a fake reference.
Yeah. I've done that. Same as you, like open-ended questions or fact-finding questions where I don't ask them the right question and see how they respond.
There's also been times when we've been kind of suspicious and we've actually waited till like 9 o'clock at night when a person would be home and driven by the property just to see if the vehicle that they had at our showing is in their parking lot.
Viewing. Oh, I like that. That's a good one. I have not done that one.
You can do that
I got a
in
question.
the city, but
Yeah.
like I have a property in Fort McMurray, Gil's got a property in BC, I've got another property in Edmonton. I cannot do that there because.
Yeah, that's more of a local strategy for sure.
Yeah. But it works.
Anyway, Chris, sorry.
Have you ever just impromptu gone over to your applicant's place and knocked on the door and said, oh, I should have gave you this piece of paper. I thought I'd stop by.
I know that technique through Landlording on Autopilot. I love that book. Mike Butler.
Yeah.
He does that. He has a staff go and shop at people's places, and he doesn't give them much notice. To tell you the truth, I'm kind of squeamish about the whole thing because, well, I'm female. I'm not very tall. I'm wearing shoes today, so I don't look like a total dwarf beside Gail. But I'm only 5'3". I only weigh like around 110 pounds. So the thought of me going to somebody's place and, in their private domain, and especially not unannounced, especially now with COVID.
But what you can
I've
do
never done it.
is when they pull their car up to the showing, have a quick look at what it looks like.
Yeah, I wrote an article about this. It's called Clean Car, Clean Tenants. So Gil would be off doing the showing and I'd be off looking on the inside of the car to see what the state of their vehicle was. Because when I'm driving, my car is very clean. I always vacuum out the inside of the floor and I get very meticulous about that sort of thing. But,
Me, not so much.
But other people they throw they go to a takeout place, they throw their garbage in the back. Their house is going to be the same.
Yeah,
So.
no, that's been mentioned as well. I don't do that so much. I guess I haven't really had the need to because I guess, well, one, I do set up the ads in a sense that I like having selection. So I don't go and try to make a decision on 2 or 3 applicants. I like to get a bunch of people come in, a bunch of at least I should be fair. It depends on the market. For the most part, I like to have a half dozen applications I've gone through, and all of a sudden now I've got 2 or 3 ones that look really good. And then, you've got choice. When you don't have choice, then you make probably not the best decision because you're forced to maybe pick a tenant that you wouldn't normally be happy with. We got a bunch of questions, and then I want to kind of keep going because I've got more questions too as we kind of share our tools of the trade. This is my mojo. I love it so much. But let's get to Trisha's question up on the screen here. At what point do you tell them about other requirements like insurance, what you require to hold the property?
That's going to be probably in the phone call.
Yeah, but insurance, I actually write in the actual advertisement. I'll say pets require a pet lease. Tenants insurance is mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
So that I put right in, and that I remind them on the phone during the pre-screen. I remind them again when I see them in person. If I think they're a suitable candidate, then I tell them again, by the way, there will be tenants insurance, which is mandatory. And then we talk about that. And What's the other thing I bring up?
So-
Oh, yes, property inspections. I also tell them that, well, my insurance requires that someone goes through the property twice a year with a property inspection. And so I tell them we're going to be coming twice a year, and it's so that we can make sure that everything is working for you, everything's in good shape. If you have any concerns, we can help you right away. But we're also there to check up on the property.
Once
I love
we
that.
once
Go
we
ahead.
do all the reference checks and all the validations, and we decide we're going to take this person as a tenant, that's the phone call where every absolute rule is going to be told. Like, we're going to want the security deposit, we're going to want the first month's rent, we're going to want all the documents signed, the lease, and everything else. And we're going to sit down in a coffee shop and we're going to go through this. And first point, if they don't have the first month's rent and they sign the lease, congratulations, you just got a tenant. Now you have to do the eviction process to get them out, and you're never going to get paid. So if they don't have their checks, like cashier's checks, when they sit down to sign the lease, we will reschedule. There is no ifs, ands, or buts.
Yeah, we just say, okay, well, thanks for coming. Well, once you have all that together, give us a call and we'll reschedule another date. Let's take out your phone and do that right now. And off we go. 5 minutes. You never have to do it more than once.
The other thing we do is, this isn't necessarily requirements, but we will, if it's a condo, we'll bring in the condo documents or the condo rules.
The bylaws, yeah.
Yes, and they will sit down and they will sign every page.
Nice. Okay, good. So I mean, again, what I'm getting here, you guys do a lot of setting expectations up front with all of your guys' different requirements. Here's what we need for insurance. Here's the move-in inspection frequency. Here's why we do it. I also like that you position it for their needs. So this gives me an opportunity to fix things for you in the house, make sure it's a good working order. I like how you position that as well, and all this great stuff. I mean, that's awesome. One thing, so I do two things differently. So now I'm gonna bounce some ideas off you guys because you kind of got me thinking here. One thing what I just started doing this year that I'm super thrilled about is we partnered with a company called New Air Insurance, and they give us early warning indication. So part of what I do is I say, yeah, insurance is an absolute requirement. You definitely have to have it. By the way, if you don't have a preferred provider, I have a discount code with New Air. You're free to use it if you choose to. And so far, it's batting 100%. Mind you, I've only used it once so far, but my tenant went up to sign up for it. But the real cool thing about this process is they've given me written permission to get notified automatically from the insurance company of any cancellations.
Right.
So that it's because my concern is always they show me this policy or they show me the binder letter 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, they cancel it. Or no, not like 2 weeks in, they cancel it. I'm like, okay, I don't know if they're not covered anymore or if they ran it for 1 month and then canceled their policy. But this way, you actually know exactly when they cancel it. And the other thing, it can kind of turn into an early warning indicator. If your tenancy is starting to go sideways, maybe the communications broke down, and all of a sudden you see a notification coming on your email that the tenant's canceled their insurance, you might have a midnight move on your hand. You got an early opportunity to correct the tenancy before it goes really bad. So.
Yeah.
Have you? How long have you guys been a part of our page, or did you just join recently, or?
Your particular page, I think 2 weeks.
So did you know about this New Era insurance company that we?
Yeah, I know about New Era. I used to when we had the property management business, there was another insurance provider that we used. The name is
BFL.
BFL, yeah. And so what we would do is we signed up with a kind of a group. It was like an umbrella coverage, and then we put individual people underneath of it. So they charged us. We billed the tenants back every month. So they could sign up for whatever coverage they wanted, $10, $15, whatever. And then that would be tacked onto their rent every month.
They couldn't cancel. Because
perfect.
I heard the stat, but I think it was like 60% or 70% of people, once they've shown the paper, they'll cancel. It's pretty high.
But New Era is good for individual owners. I don't think that BFL, I recently tried to get back onto BFL again, and they said we don't take people who have less than 10 or 15 properties. So as an individual,
so more of a more of a bigger property.
Yeah, New Era is better for you.
Cool. Well, it's good to know then. And then the other thing, so I do digital signing now because I'm just generally lazy and it's easy, right? So I let them sign. I say at time of signing, I need to get. So my big rule is I do not give possession without full damage deposit and rent paid up front. I don't make any amendments or I don't take any changes. They have to pay those two payments all at once. Generally, if someone says, "Oh, can I pay my damage deposit over the first 2 months of the lease or something like that," that to me is a red flag. If they can't afford to give me a damage deposit, it's probably going to be a struggle collecting rent. So I don't do that. But I usually say the first amount paid to me is a deposit against first month's rent. And then at any other point before the move-in inspection, they have to pay me the damage deposit. So I usually let them spread those two payments apart. That's how I approach it as well. So it sounds like you're very similar. Like if you don't have cash in hand, they're not getting the property.
No, we have when we were dealing with people who were in the same city. If somebody came in and they said, "I want it right now. I want you to hold it for me," I'd say, "Okay, well, if you want it held and you could fill in the application right now," we'd have them sign a form that said that the money was going to be held. It would be put towards the first month's rent if they were accepted. If they were not accepted, we refunded immediately. If they changed their minds on the first of the month, they lost their deposit. So they'd sign and date it. We'd sign and date it. Everyone takes pictures. And then sometimes they'd run to the bank and they'd bring me back a whack of cash. And so
cool.
That worked. Or people e-transfer.
And I've done something kind of similar. I wonder if we have the kind of the same form. It's like an instant renter, like an instant approval form or instant renter form or something like that, where I do similar thing. But I also say, I want you to sign off that, I've never been evicted before. I've never been late on rent. Like a bunch of these little lines they have to initial off. Basically, I'm trying to put their pen to paper, and if you're willing to sign off on this, it's still by that psychology test that they're going to be hopefully honest. And then back up that deposit or back up that instant form with the deposit. And the same thing, if I pick them, it goes towards the first month's rent. If they don't get picked, it gets refunded. And if they break the promises laid out, then it's a forfeit of that deposit.
Yeah.
Cool. So Trista's got another question here. How do you deal with people who say they're renting because they sold their house? How do you check the references with them?
That is a tricky one. In cases like that, we are normally going to go to the employer reference because there isn't any landlord history.
And the credit check.
Yeah, credit check is important. And if they just sold their house, they should have some money.
Yeah, actually, we've had a lot of those people. For high-end condos and high-end houses we used to rent, the $1 million ones or the close to $1 million we got quite a few people who were having a house built or condo built. They had owned a house they'd never rented before. And once we ran the credit checks and the landlord references, we never had a problem with them.
Yeah, and that goes back to, like you guys said, going to Spin Alberta to pull title. That'd be a great scenario to try that out. Yeah, so I would say the same thing. I mean, checking the employment, checking some proof of ownership or sales contract. I've asked for a while as well from the realtor, so I've gotten that too. I think those are about the three places I can think you can check off the top of my head.
The other thing we haven't talked about is social media. So you want to go on Facebook and LinkedIn and all those sites and make sure that that story is again consistent. And you might find out that they belong to, I don't know, white supremacist gangs or something like that. And stuff you want to watch for.
You see people posing with guns. You see people posing with a dog who say they don't have a dog. I ran a Google search on a woman who did a showing with Gil, and she was very charming. She brought these two adorable kids with her. Gil loved her. And these young women always work on Gil because I could just see them like, oh, be a guy. Yeah. And I ran all the searches. I ran a Google search. They didn't know I was in the background. And I found out she'd been a former stripper, and she had stilettoed one of her colleagues and ended up with a jail sentence.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, she didn't put that on her application.
No.
Oddly.
Let's see what Don's got to say here. He says you've had 3 instances recently where an e-transfer payment have been falsified, meaning that they have a receipt from the bank that a transfer was completed but never went into the owner's account.
Wow.
That's interesting. Don, we'll have to have it when we have you on the show next. Let's have a conversation about that. So when I go over the e-transfers, I want to see that the to and from emails, the from email should be, the from's from Interact, right? The to email should be usually going to the previous landlord. So that name on that email should match the email I got in my reference. Also on the bottom of the email e-transfers, as a side note, I'll go back to it, is you can actually find out what bank they bank with. It usually tells you if it's an RBC, BMO. So that gives you a little bit more information if you're collecting e-transfers as opposed to a check. And then also going in and seeing what the notes for, seeing the date and time when those emails have been sent, and for the amount. But I'm thinking now, you could go and send in an Interact e-transfer. If you're, I'm just trying to think how they'd fake this, because they'd go and send one. You generate the email saying it's been sent, but it hasn't been deposited. So I guess you'd want to make sure you have the confirmation Interact email where it confirms that it's been deposited. But that's a
well. Here's my thing with
Greg.
that is, you know what? If it's not in your bank account, it's not a you problem. It's still a them problem. And I don't care what they have to do. Go to the bank, get me a letter from your bank. It doesn't matter. Otherwise, here's your eviction notice, and start packing, or get your bank to write me a letter. I'm sorry, but I have set up specific emails that they're auto deposited. So if they're trying to tell me to send something, I know it's BS, because all my accounts for my renters go to a specific Chris rental something blah blah, and it's auto deposited.
But this is on the pre-screening, so we don't have them as tenants. I want to look at previous emails with their last landlord that they have actually paid rent on time.
So the landlord will tell you,
or your credit check will show that a lot of TV. There was a TVS, Tenant Verification Services, had a little form that you could sign where you could, when you got a new tenant, you could enter whether they paid their rent on time or how late they were.
Notice the tenant.
Pardon me?
That's called a notice to tenant.
right?
Tenant, yeah.
But that's only good if people actually use it.
If they actually use it, and if they actually do it. So I did it for some of my tenants, and then I stopped doing it. So, yeah.
So they're actually one of our partners on the page. So I'm glad you guys brought that up, that you used to use their service. They're now called Landlord Credit Bureau. And you can do all that online right now. And they have blurbs that you can put into your lease and on your application that gives you permission to do that part of the credit reporting. So, but but like you said, if you're not using it, then you don't get that information. Okay, let's more questions here, Chris. So we are currently looking for tenants for our new basement suite. Have you guys ever done mock calls with other investors as a teaching experience on how you do reference checks? I think it'd be a great opportunity to showcase your skill if you have done that. Nelda and Gil, what do you guys think?
You mean, have I practiced with people who are new, who want to practice their interviewing techniques?
Yes, I think that's what they mean.
I think so.
I haven't had anyone call me and ask me to do that with them. No. I think it's a really good idea.
It'd be fun.
It'd be fun, yeah.
I could be the deadbeat.
We could do it right now. When I think about it, maybe we should do this, Chris. I know Chris and I have talked about doing this before, but maybe I could be your guys' tent, and you guys want to do a phone interview with me, and we can wrap up the show. And we got a few more questions. So we didn't even get to like the due diligence side. I know we talked about a little bit, but I mean, there's just so much information to tenant screening, and it's tough to cover it in a short hour. But do you guys got an extra time to stay for another maybe 10 minutes or so?
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Guys, we appreciate that. Let's hammer out these last questions quickly to answer the ones that people have asked live, because we definitely appreciate that. So Gidra asked, do you ask tenants to let you know when they're going on vacation? The property will be empty. How do you guys handle your insurance requirement with vacancies when tenants aren't around?
That's kind of a tricky one, because
it's up to the tenant to report to the insurance company.
Yeah, and it's up to them to tell you, and a lot of times they don't think about doing that.
And they have to have insurance, so their insurance is their responsibility. But
yeah,
we have had a situation where a house turned into an ice box, and we got very, very fortunate because there was no actual damage. They went to Cuba just when the temperature hit -30. That's actually a process that we need to improve on.
I have for my Fort Mac property, I had a company. I had Enbridge renting my upstairs suite, and the fellow there was going back to India for a couple months before COVID. And so Enbridge was really adamant that I get somebody in to check the house every day. They wanted somebody shoveling the walks, because apparently in their past history with someone else, this person had left on vacation and someone had slipped and broken their neck or something on the property, and Enbridge got sued for big bucks. So that's another.
As being the tenant on a landlord's lease?
Yeah. So what I have done in the past is, if I know people are going to be going on vacation, I will ask them during the wintertime, and I get somebody to come in and shovel the snow. And then I've got a handyman. I've got the best handyman in the whole world ever.
Don't give his name.
I won't give you his name. You can't have him. And he comes in and he checks on my place.
Yeah, this is that scenario where you guys are remote, so this property is out of town in another city or location, and so the best strategy, it sounds like, is having a reliable source that are your boots on the ground, say, to help you, get those
Like
those day to day.
responsible for shoveling the snow and all the other stuff. Like that's their job.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if they let the insurance lapse, then it gets a little ugly because they won't have the funds to cover any damages.
Yeah.
Okay. So Trish mentioned this one. Tell Mac and Chris, you should tell them about the Facebook email trick. So I think I know what Trish is talking about. I hope I do. When you guys go and check someone's Facebook profile, if you go right to their actual profile page and you go look at the URL, well, it's in two places. If you go look at the URL at the very end, typically, if they haven't changed the default, Facebook defaults to their first last name in the URL. So if they have their name, Chris,
I'm going to talk non-techie for everybody because you're even over my head, bud. Let me have this one.
All right. Explain this better than me, Chris.
You just blew me away. Okay. All right. So I'm going to go with the non-propeller head here. That's me. I'm going to explain. So you look at somebody's Facebook. Okay. For example, right there. All right. Here's a Facebook of somebody. Right over here. Oops, let me go the opposite way. There's 3 little dots right there. On those dots, if you touch that, it will take you over to something that has a profile. And underneath that thing, it says, this person's name was Lorraine's profile link. And if you actually go on it, underneath that, it actually gives the actual name that they originally signed up with. Because you can change your name on Facebook. So if you have Chris Noble on Facebook and I change it to John Smith, if you go in there and look, because I originally signed up as Chris Noble, that's the name that will be there, even though I got John Smith. So that's the URL that Mac's talking about, and all those things for the non-techies on here. So sorry, Mac, to do that to you, buddy, but no, I love you to pieces, and I know you fix all my stuff. But
same thing, different Paul. Let me explain it better. Then I'm going to redo this. So if you're on your computer and you're looking at someone's Facebook profile, it goes facebook.com, where you type in websites that go to them. You keep following that, and there's going to be more text at the end. Typically, Facebook defaults to it's usually first name, last name, and if it's a common name, they'll add numbers on the end. And that's a unique website for someone's Facebook profile. Is that a better way of explaining it, Chris?
Yeah, that's good. So anyway, the name on their profile is not always the same as the original name they signed up with, and that's what you got to look for. And I'll tell you, when we're screening people that come into our page, we have found that time and time again, and it's one of those red flags that we're always looking for.
Okay, so a quick public service announcement. Don Gray, they have evicted Heather Sherman again for the fourth time in the last year or so. She'll be on the hunt again. Hey, Don, what area is this for? I'm assuming this is an Edmonton area tenant to be on the lookout for. Maybe just let us know. Yeah. But on that note, do you guys want to do a quick phone call? You can grill me and
take this.
Okay.
Are you going to be an employer, a tenant, or a landlord reference?
I'm a prospective.
Or
which one should we do?
Or should we be the tenant and you can ask me the questions? Usually I'm doing, I'm the landlord. What do you want to do?
You're your landlord because you're the experts.
I'm the landlord.
Yeah, you guys do the landlord. Let's do the tenant one. The tenant one, I think a lot of people stumble right off the gate. So if they can at least get the right questions up front, maybe we'll save them some more time to the due diligence.
Okay, I'm just pulling the laminated questions.
Okay, perfect. So I'll go ring, 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 ring.
Hello?
Oh, hi there. I'm inquiring about your rental property. You got listed in Rent Faster.
Oh, thank you for calling. My name is Nelda. What's your name?
Hi, Nelda. My name is Mackenzie Wilson.
Oh, nice to meet you over the phone, Mackenzie. So which property are you looking for?
It's the one that you had listed in downtown, your 2-bedroom, 1-bath condo.
Oh, great. Yeah, that one's vacant. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself? I always like to get to know people.
Yeah, absolutely. So I work in IT. I work at TELUS. Been there for a number of years. And I'm just looking for something a little bit closer to the C train so I don't have to worry about so much having a vehicle.
Oh, okay. All right. That's great. And I'm just wondering, how many people would be living on the property?
Well, I've got my girlfriend and I. let's say I'm single right now. And then we have 2 kids on the weekend, and then her pet Bungie and her dog named Bill, Uncle Bill.
Okay. Talking to Uncle Bill. Oh, that's very interesting. So tell me again how many people are going to be in the property?
3 of us.
Okay, so but you mentioned, I thought I mentioned a 4th person. You said
but I guess. Well, it'll be. Oh shoot! Yeah, just my girlfriend and I. We won't have the kids there.
Oh, okay. So we're just wondering where the kids are. Are they away on the weekends or staying?
Yeah. The shared custody.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. So potentially 4 people then. Do you think that's maybe 4 people, like you and your girlfriend most of the time, and then the 2 kids some of the other time?
Yeah, and that's why we want the second bedroom. When we do have the kid, they can have a place to stay.
Oh, okay. So am I correct then with you telling me? Tell me again how many numbers they're going to be here in the condo.
4.
Okay. All right. 4. Gotcha. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm a little math. I'm not very good with math. Can you tell me how many pets you have?
Yeah, a dog and a bird.
Okay, so
Uncle Bill and
Uncle Bill is your bird,
and Jimbo the budgie.
Jimbo the budgie. Okay, great. And can you tell me how old your dog is and what kind of weight and breed and that kind of stuff he is?
Yeah, it's a wiener dog. He's 6 years old.
Okay, great. And tell me about your budgie.
Budgie, I don't know anything about birds. He's a green bird. Stays in the cage. I don't know.
Oh, stays in the cage. The magic words. I've got a story about that, by the way. But that's not
okay.
Okay. When are you looking to move in?
I'm hoping I can move right away. I just would like to do this really quickly. You guys mentioned it's vacant. Like, can I move in tomorrow? Does that work for you guys? I can pay you guys right now with cash.
Oh, well, that's great. We've got a bit of a process that we ask people to go through. And so part of our screening process is we have an application form and we run a credit check and we run landlord and work references. Is that okay with you? Like, is that something that you'd be willing to do? Or is there anything you want to tell me?
No, I'm happy. I can definitely provide that information you've asked for.
Oh, okay. Do you mind if I ask why you're wanting to move in so quickly?
I've had trouble trying to get the last couple of rentals. I've missed out. So I'm hoping, I thought if I could move in quicker, you guys would like to fill a vacancy quicker. It might make me more of an ideal candidate for you guys.
Oh, okay. And do you mind if I ask why you're moving?
Again, just being closer to the C train so I can be closer to work and not have the need for a car.
Okay. So where are you living right now? Do you mind if I ask that?
Yeah, for sure. I'm living up in the Northwest in drawing a blank here, Royal Oak. So I am off the C train, but I'd just like to be closer to downtown.
Okay. And have you given your landlord notice yet?
Yes, I have.
Oh, okay. And so what length of a lease did you have with your last landlord or with your current landlord?
I'm on a term lease. I got a 1-year lease, and it's going to be up at the end of the month.
Oh, okay. All right, great. And what length of a lease are you looking for?
Oh, I'd be looking for a 1-year term, please.
Oh, okay. All right.
Do you guys do month to month by chance as well? I wouldn't mind having more flexibility if that's an option.
Okay. Well, this particular property only takes fixed term tenancies, but after your fixed term tenancies up, we might be willing to do some negotiating over a month to month lease. So that's certainly something we could discuss.
Okay.
Did I mention to you that we run a credit check? Is there anything you want to tell me about your credit?
No, it should be pretty good. I know I had some trouble. I missed a few credit card payments a while back, but I pay all my bills on time, so I don't think there should be any surprises. Cool. We can probably leave it at that, unless there's any other questions you want to ask me.
we got them all.
I think that covers just about everything. When could we schedule a showing for you?
I'm available tomorrow. Can you guys do tomorrow at 7 o'clock?
Yeah, we can. Tomorrow at 7 just works perfectly. Here's the address.
Awesome.
What I'm going to do is I'm going to text you the time and the address, And you'll have my phone number, of course, with a text. And what I ask all of our tenants, potential tenants, to do is to please confirm that you received the text, confirm 1 hour prior to your appointment. If I get a text from you, I will show up for the appointment. If I do not get a text, I will not come. Is that
okay? No, that sounds completely fair. I like that. I can definitely do that.
Great.
And for the record, when we send the text with the confirmation also says, send us a text an hour before to this number. And, we make sure we reinforce that in a text so that they have no way to forget.
I love that. No, that's good. That's good. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you for calling us. You don't sound shifty at all. If you did, I'd have my friend Chris Noble beat the snot out of you.
Yeah. Well, Chris, he looks like he's 5'8" on camera. He's actually over 6 feet. Be honest to you, no, I'm 5'11" 3/4. I didn't quite make it to the 6 feet side of the book, but Chris is a little bit taller than me when you see him in real life.
So Gil, you better call his employer, Gil, and his employer is sitting right above you. So why don't you give him a quick call, see how that goes. So, hello, can I help you?
Yeah.
How do you interview employers, Gil?
Okay.
Oh, and Trish is asking, what about his girlfriend's credit? Good point.
We do a check on everybody on the lease.
Yeah, actually, I do mention that. I forgot this time, but I run a credit check for everyone whose name is going to be on the lease.
Yeah, same here. Yeah, same thing. Every adult has to fill an application.
Yeah, if they don't want the girlfriend or the boyfriend's name on the lease, they want to be listed as an other occupant because one person's credit is not good, the other person's credit is great. I'm okay with that, but then that person has to understand that they have to accept full responsibility for all payments, paying the rent on time every month. 100% of the responsibility is on their shoulders.
Donald Gray just made an interesting comment that I'd like to speak to. Who cares? He has cash.
Don's a bit of a character, so go light on him. He's our eviction expert, so he's messing with you.
He's probably affected a lot of people who had cash.
Yeah. So when I lived in Fort McMurray, everybody paid their rent with cash because they all got a living out allowance, and so every month, literally, I had a big stack of cash on my table. I loved it. I couldn't even fit it all in my wallet. When I came to Calgary and real cities like Edmonton, Calgary, other cities that are also real, people don't pay with cash. Cash is it's a big red flag. That's usually a drug deal or something illicit, something that they can't claim on their
prostitution.
Or there are a number of people who kind of live right under the wire. Mm-hmm. They're maybe working in a business as a contractor for somebody. That person's paying them in cash. They're not claiming their income tax. So there's something shady going on.
Yeah, and the government's going to catch them eventually, and then they're going to fine them, and then suddenly the person won't have rent money. So we like it all above board. We like it traceable. We like it. Anyway, let's go back to our. We were going to talk with the landlord.
Yeah.
The boss.
Yeah. We're going to talk to the boss. That's Chris. Chris is the muscle here.
We'll do a quick little interview of the employer. Let's see what we can play with here. What are your red flags?
We're just looking for the page, so it's not in here.
Before we hop into that, I just want to throw a quick highlight that you guys did very well, or Nelda did, is Nelda made sure she kept clarifying some of the answers. If you guys don't know, or they're kind of skirting the question, be forward and be front with it. She kept asking me how many people I had at the house. It was a 2-bedroom condo, and I said 3 or 4. Plus on weekends and 2 pets or whatever else. You got to know that stuff. And if it's simple math. And part of where I learned this was I wasted time on a viewing, and it was 100% a cultural difference, right? So this was before I started asking the number of people. I had a gentleman call. He's from I can't even tell you what country he's from. He's from Middle East or somewhere, and then showed up with a whole family load in my 2-bedroom condo in downtown Calgary. And I was just like, this does not fly, buddy. I physically couldn't fit the six people or whatever that was in there. So, and then I got smart enough to start asking these simple logistics that you got to figure out ahead of time if it's even going to work. Because if your vacancy doesn't tie them up and they want to move in tomorrow and your vacancy's at the end of the month, don't show it to them. Save your time. Don't save your evening and watch the hockey game, right? And some lessons learned along the way. So, yes, good job.
I also had a fellow from another country who called me, and it was a 1-bedroom condo, and he wanted 6 people, but he said he had 2 kids that were under the age of 2, and they weren't really technically people. And he kept trying to argue with me. I said, okay, well, thank you very much. I've got your number. I'm in a big rush right now. I have to run out the door. I'll call you back, because there's no way he would accept no for an answer.
Yeah, so it's just I'll get back to you, or great, or yeah, end the call and just politely move on, and because there's tons of good tenants out there. You don't need the ones that are going to argue, especially when they don't even have they're trying to in the stage of impress upon you, and they are getting combative. That's just a telltale sign of what that tenancy is going to look like. Yeah,
this is when they're putting on their best face, and if their best face is like that, you don't even want to know what their worst face is like.
Yeah, exactly. So it's great. Okay, so we're gonna do one more role playing, and thanks for doing that so impromptu in the spot. I kind of threw you guys on the spot, and Nelda, you did a very fine job. So what's this next scenario? We're doing a landlord check or employer check?
I'm going to be an employer, and you're going to be the person with the property. So you're asking me the questions.
So is that Chris? Chris, are you interviewing Gil?
Yeah, sounds like it.
Oh, I thought you were interviewing the employer, verifying employment.
So
I thought I was the employer.
So let's do this. Chris, you're the landlord calling Gil, who's an employer for a tenant that's applied to your property, Chris. So you're doing an employment check, Chris.
Actually, can we hold on? Let's back that up because I have the questions.
Sure.
So let's.
So Gil, you're doing the check, and Chris is the employer.
Sorry.
You're gonna grill Chris.
I have a brain.
Yes,
Yeah.
I love it.
Okay.
What's the scenario? What's the
It's
company?
you. We're interviewing you. You're this is a continuation of you. So
fantastic.
just sit down, be quiet, quit interfering with the process.
That's off.
But I'm asking the questions, right? Just so I know.
Yeah, you guys are the experts, and then you're trying to figure out whether we're duping you here or not. So
Chris is an IT wizard at TELUS.
all right, go ahead.
Ring, ring.
Hello.
Hello, my name's Gil, and I've just received an application for tenancy from John Smith, who claims that he works at your company.
For who? Sorry. Sorry, for who?
For TELUS. So can you confirm this information for me?
Oh yeah. Tell us. Yeah. This is TELUS. How? Yeah. So what is it you're asking about? Sorry, about John. Oh yeah, John. That's who you're asking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
So John Smith claims that he works for TELUS. Can you confirm that, please?
Yes, he does.
Okay. Can you tell me how long you've known John?
Oh, I've known him for a long time. He's a great guy. Yeah. You don't have to worry about him. He's good. He'll be okay for you.
Can you confirm the dates that he worked in your company?
Yeah. What did he tell you?
He told me that he was there from January of 2020 to current.
Yeah, that sounds just about right.
Oh, you know what? I just made a classic mistake.
Well, he could have been lying. He could have been lying about the dates. Oh,
So I was going to do a pause here right now. So what Gil probably did there for everybody watching is, Gil, you set it up. So you made some fake dates up, and I answered, yeah, that's exactly it. So that's your flag, right?
That's why I always say Nelda's better at this than I am. Okay, what can you tell me about John?
Oh, he's a good guy. He does what we ask him to do. He's been around for a while. I know him known him for a while. So he's a pretty good guy, and we like having him. And you won't have any problems with him.
It's a lot of talking there.
Can you give me an example of how John handled a conflict situation?
What do you mean by that?
I'm going to jump in here because I usually do these ones. Sometimes landlords have one way of dealing with things and looking at stuff, and tenants have another way, and you have to kind of hammer it out. And so, when was there an example at work when he had a different opinion of something, and maybe you had a different opinion? Can you walk me through that, or maybe something with a client? There must be something.
Oh yeah, no, him and I disagreed on a couple things, but yeah, it made sense. But yeah, no, he's a good guy. You won't have any problems with him.
So how did that turn out then? Like what?
Oh, everything worked out just fine.
Can you tell me what the situation was? I'm sorry, I'm just having trouble sort of getting it straight in my head.
So I'm going to just pause this right now, and we'll go off script here. So can anybody watching right now see any problems with the way this interview is going? So, me as the employer right now, it really isn't doing a good job. I would say that both Gil and Nelda, you must be like, your flags and you're like, you want to get off this call, don't you?
You're out.
Okay.
And
So
any information at all.
So now let's go the other route. We'll just quickly jump into it as to what an expected response would be. So the phone's ringing, and we're going to jump into it. Now the phone's ringing, and I'm answering. Hello, this is Chris at TELUS. Can I help you?
You go ahead.
Oh, great, Chris. My name is Nelda, and I'm running a reference check for a tenancy for John Smith.
Oh, yes. Yeah. He's
Okay.
employed here. Yes.
Okay. How long has he worked for you? Could you confirm the dates, please?
Yeah. Just let me bring that up on the computer here. He's been here for, it looks like it's been for 4 years and 3 months. So he started back in whatever 4 years from now is. So that'll be back in 2017, November 2017 until now. So yep, that's how long he's been here.
Okay. And what can you tell me about him?
John's a great guy. He works in our IT department, and he is one of our team leaders, and he looks after quite a number of people. So he's very good at the managing of people and situations. So we're happy to have him as part of our team.
Okay. Can you give me an example of how he dealt with conflict situations? I'm guessing he must be dealing with all kinds of conflicts all the time if he's managing a team. Can you give me an example and walk me through it step by step, please?
Yeah. John, as part of his management skills that we teach, he has the conflict resolution process that we've taught. And as a matter of fact, it's interesting you should bring that up, because just last week he had a team leader that had a team member that had a problem, and as a team leader, he stepped in, gathered the facts, presented some solutions, and came up with they came up with a solution that worked well for the company and worked well for him and his team, and they continue to be a successful contribution to our company.
Good. Okay. My almost last question: if you were a landlord, would you rent to him?
Yeah. I guess I could, I could tell you that I don't have any issues with him whatsoever. He's a solid employee. He has been here for that number of years. I would have no problem renting to him whatsoever. And in fact, he doesn't, well, I'll kind of tip my hand here a little bit, but we do have him up as part of our next process where in the advancement. So we do have some things in line for him, and he'll probably be stepping up in the company in a little bit higher management role. So he doesn't know a lot about that yet, but I'm sharing that with you as sort of an employer to, he's going to be with you. So his role with the company could very well be stepping up into a little higher management.
And for the right amount of money, I can keep it to myself.
So with that said,
my last question is there anything else that I haven't asked you that you would like to tell me about him?
Nothing particularly comes to mind. I just don't think that you'll have a problem with him at all. I don't have a problem with him at work. He does what I ask him to do, and he presents with some very good suggestions in streamlining the business here and how it runs.
Can I come in as a sub, like a third party? I've been listening as well. Can I just ask one more question? I think something you've already answered it, but for the foreseeable future, you see John will have employment with your company?
Oh yeah. And if he doesn't, we'll put him out on the line, putting some fiber optics in the ground, so we'll get him away from his keyboard.
Well, thank you for your time.
I'm going to try to recover some dignity here.
Sure.
One thing I'd like to point out, we have it on our notes here, is that if you decided not to take the tenant, you would not give the tenant the reason, and especially you would not give them the reason that they got a bad reference from their landlord or from their employer, because that can turn into a lawsuit. So
absolutely,
you want to be careful. Yeah. And some employers will not give references because they're very aware of the fact that they're exposing themselves to potential lawsuits. I've seen it in employee situations and in tenant situations. So just something to be aware of.
Sometimes all they can give you are the dates that they work there, and that's it. They're not allowed to say anything else. I know I've worked in places where HR was very strict about what you could and you could not say because they've been sued before.
That's right. Well, HRs will a lot of time just confirm the information you have. So again, so just to go back real quick, you saw two different interviews, two different employers, one's a scam, obviously, and one is a more professional approach as to how. So that's why I wanted to role play both so that you guys can see that.
You did a fine job, Chris.
Yeah.
Of what? Being a jerk or being a good guy?
You exceeded
Go
both.
back up.
Expectations.
I want a good point that Gil brought up. I want to just add one more segue, and I think that's super important. If you got a really tight-lipped employer, I say, well, hey, this is what I've been told, and assuming you've gone through a proper channel through reception or a main line, you actually know you're talking to someone at the company and just not just the phone number off the application.
Right.
If you're talking to somebody you are sure is working with the company, I usually say, okay, that's fair enough. I'm not looking to get in trouble. He's told me this is what his average monthly income is. Does this sound within the range on his paycheck? And they usually say yeah or no. I just get them to confirm information without them giving me information. That might be another way to kind of sidestep around that. And then one thing I like you brought that last point, Gil, about the lawsuits and all that. I learned this from another guest we had on our show, and she says if she gives a landlord, she's got no problem. She's a landlord like us. Her name's Sandy Franzem, and she has this great point where if someone calls her for a reference, she asks them first, well, how are you going to use this information? Because like you don't want that information getting back, if they're not going to treat the information properly, it can turn into a mess that you brought up, Gil. That's a great point. So her first question to the landlord calling her for the reference is, how are you going to handle this information? And once she's confident they're going to do it in a proper manner, then she goes on to give them the reference.
Yeah, that's great. That's excellent.
Yeah. So
one of the last thing about employment, a lot of times if you can't call, you'll ask your tenant to provide you with a reference employment confirmation letter. And then at the very least you could do is contact the employer to verify that the person signed it was in fact the person signing it works there. And they'll confirm that, yes, I did write that letter for him. So
love it. Cool.
Great.
Well, we did overtime. This is our longest show. So congratulations, Nelda and Gil. You guys set the record. So thanks for staying overtime with us. We really appreciate it. We're going to just wrap her up now because it's been a solid hour and a half. But we got 19 people watching right now. So
it really was a pleasure. We love to go off on these tangents with other people who, when you know something and then you share it with other people who know a little bit more, like Mackenzie and Chris, it's like, oh, then there's this and then there's that.
It's
so that's
fun.
And it's also really great when you know that there are other people who are doing this as well as us, because it just adds a level of credibility and professionalism to being a private landlord.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Mac, we got to go overtime just like you like to do. So
on the hot stove lounge.
I've got company, so I'm ready to pack her in here, my friend.
Well, let's do it. We'll end her. So, Gil and Nelda, thank you guys so much for joining us on the show tonight. We appreciate having you on the Alberta Shop Talk, the only show dedicated to Alberta landlords. And thank you guys very much.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, guys.
People want to get in touch with me. Do you want me to tell them how to do that?
Sure.
Yeah, sure. If you guys want to reach out, how can someone find you guys?
Nelda at neldaschulte.com or neldaschulte.com. So I'll just type it in the chat box.
Perfect.
Oh.
And just stick around after we run the closer here, and we'll talk to you behind the big screen. Thank you, everybody, for being a part of it. We look forward to next week and see what we got planned for you. And thanks again for joining us.
Pleasure.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.